Hey guys, Joe here. Wanted to go over some stuff regarding the whole story of when guys start looking to stop their pornography addiction or their porn habit, the engaging in porn that they've done for years and years. So I wanted to sort of make a video where we draw stuff and go through it in real time. So guys, if you're new here, I'm Joe. I was addicted to porn for about 17 years of my life. In 2025, I managed to meet Tom Molyneux and Mary Paulus, who taught me the Beyond Compulsion method, a method that is focused around rewiring addicted neural pathways. And ever since, I've never looked back. A very different way of looking at the problem. More importantly, it taught me how to stop engaging in porn and then stay stopped. Prior to that, I'd been engaging for years and years and years when I was going through my teenage years. Around 2016, 2017, discovered NoFap, and unfortunately went down the route of practicing everything there, using the language there, using the strategies that we all find in NoFap, counting days, cold showers, daily routines, blockers, all that kind of stuff that we all normally try when we're trying to stop a porn addiction. And after 4 years of trying all that stuff, I then finally said, right, time to get serious, invest in some paid programs and see what we can do about it. Went on 2 paid programs over the next 4 years, and unfortunately they didn't get me the result that I wanted to stop and stay stopped. So yeah, very grateful to be here. Been using BCA for about a year now, and most importantly, hundreds of other guys have gone through this as well, had the same result of being able to stop their addiction and stay stopped. So if we go back all those years ago, when perhaps you were 12 or 13, any age really, 8 or 9, you could be even perhaps 14 years old, 15 years old. The point is that when you first started pornography at an early age, most guys will go through years and years and years of engaging without actually understanding the negative consequences that is going to happen years and years down the line. So we're sort of in blissful ignorance, and why wouldn't we be? It's a sort of a new thing. Porn in the Western world amongst school students and above, it's a very normalized thing. It's a very normalized part of sort of Western society. Everything's getting more sexualized. Everything is more open. Whatever your take is on that reality is one thing, but the cause and effect has been clear when you go through years and years of engaging and you first attempt to stop and you realize that, damn, this is actually harder than I thought. There's a lot of convolution that happens, and a lot of us end up in a situation where we're like, damn, I can't even stop. I don't know how to stop. So a lot of us go to NoFap, and that's probably where we should start. So first attempt to stop. Cool. So we finally decide to take action. And we come across NoFap, whether that's through Reddit or that's through YouTube or some sort of forum, right? And when you're in this NoFap space, wherever you may be at, you'll begin to pick up strategies and tools. And this is a very non-exhaustive list, but some of these are the main themes that I've noticed come up again and again and again, and during my time as well. So if we go into a few of these, and I think counting days is the best one to start with. Everyone is probably familiar and well acquainted with counting days. So in NoFap, you have the culture of day counting where perhaps there's milestones. And these milestones are 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year. And when it comes to counting days, there is this rhetoric of, well, if you reach amount of days, you get these benefits. And this is where you're at with porn addiction. If you're off it for X days, you're this addicted and that addicted. It gets very convoluted, but without ever taking away from the achievement of staying stopped for a period, which is always a good thing, the mentality of counting days can also add a lot of convolution, as I just mentioned. And so what happens is a lot of guys will come to BCA, and some guys will be, in a place where they hadn't engaged for a year. And within that year, perhaps they've been trying some of these strategies here, but the point is they stayed away from porn for a year. However, the problem that they had was that even though they had not engaged in porn for a pretty a good amount of time, the issue is that they never felt free from the addiction throughout that whole year, and every day was sort of like, I got to struggle and I've got to sort of push through and I've got to really force myself to not do something that the addicted part of the mind wants me to do. And a lot of that is just through not connecting with the desire, not actually sort of addressing the things that come up in the moment, and rather sort of delay or circumvent or, try to avoid the situation of the present moment in order to stop porn, or try a strategy to stop porn. And counting days is one of these things where, although you may use it to perhaps, I don't know, gamify your experience of trying to stop porn addiction and staying off porn for X amount of days. It never actually is a good measurement of how free someone feels from the addiction in the moment. And ideally, what you want to be is you want to be someone who, when they're ready to stop and they understand how to stop, and then they decide to stop, they don't have to feel that it's willpower and it's a graft when they're staying stopped after that. And arguably, you know, when it comes to BCA, for example, Mary would always say, look, 90 seconds of the 5-fact script is more effective than 90 days of NoFap. Because when it comes to the fundamental issues of the pre-existing software, the mindset that all of these strategies, including counting days, builds up in the mind, it's important to unwire yourself from that mental position of trying to not watch porn into one which is like, I'm choosing and I'm rationally choosing and I'm doing so from a position of strength and power. But anyway, as we know, counting days, we're all very common with it. The next one, push-up routines. Push-up routines could mean exercise routines. It could also mean me going outside when I'm feeling an urge and running around the block 6 times, right? It's replacement behavior. It's using exercise as a replacement behavior for when you feel urge. And so what the result that you want is you want to sort of stay off porn by, you know, going outside and doing something productive or going out and doing exercise. But a lot of what this channel explains and what Tom's channel also explains is that using this kind of strategy is just delaying, it's just pushing the thoughts down the road for them to come up again in the future. So you want to address it and rewire your active thinking through every urge in the moment using a tool rather than trying to just delay the problem down the line and just replace it with a behavior temporarily. And you could be feeling urges and feeling that discomfort while you're doing that and not making any sort of mental progress on trying to feel free from that in the first place. Cold showers is another one, and without taking away from the benefits that people report, you know, it's still just one other thing that, again, it isn't actually connecting with the addictive mechanism in that moment. It's simply perhaps taking away the urge in that moment for it to then come again later in the day. Extra YouTube videos. There's more and more videos every day to seek an answer for this situation. Ironically, this is a YouTube video. However, you get my point. Meditation and journaling, again, good things to do. They just don't address the particular things that need to be addressed when you feel urges in the moment. And a lot of this is sort of put out there to sort of become more aware. Watch your thoughts, watch your feelings. And all of that is great, but it isn't exactly connecting with the desire when it comes up in the moment. So another concept of this is like using the energy from perhaps semen retention or retention of not watching porn and using that into something productive in life. Again, something very good. And so there's this adjacent narrative which is attached to that theme that describes when you're using this energy in other areas of your life to create something or improve, do self-improvement essentially. One may argue, well, because you're using your energy in this way and you're creating things to come into your life and therefore you're getting more connected to your quote-unquote purpose, which again is great, but it doesn't stop the wanting for porn. It doesn't stop the years of wiring that has already happened for you to want to compulsively engage in porn and seek out porn. And it doesn't address any of that. So where you're winning other victories in other areas of your life, you're still in the dilemma of what to do about this addiction, because improving those things may help with your life situation, but it won't take away or it won't address compulsive desire directly. And because the common theme with a lot of these strategies is that unfortunately it just defaults to willpower on some sort of level, we just go back into this relapse and repeat cycle. You know, we had up here, there's this section here where when you relapse, you're thinking, what did I learn from this scenario? What were the triggers that I encountered? Where was I? And there's this sort of reflection of not to be in this situation again, which when you're thinking these things, it's a very rational sort of list to go through. It's sort of, don't do this again. Let's make sure we avoid the situation so we don't act out in the future. The issue is that when you're in the first person experience of an addiction, and given that this is all real life, you have to understand that the best mental position to be in is that whatever happens, whenever there's this quote-unquote trigger that comes up in my life, whatever location I'm in, I have something to rely on in this situation, whatever happens, right? And so getting that sense of strength and autonomy that we really want in this situation, and not to be sort of trying to run away from the issue at hand when you're asking yourself these questions post-relapse. and probably even more than this. Open up all sorts of possibilities for these thread of all sorts of thoughts to come into this section here and really convolute the situation. So we want to try and get out of this mentality here. And yeah, like any other sort of relapse, you have this thing that I like to call the reset streak ritual. So you're going on your blocker app and then you're resetting the day counter, or you're just like deleting some sexual content off your device and you're thinking, right, I'm going to reset, I'm going to do a fresh slate. But this happens again and again and again and again, and it really takes a toll. It really makes you fed up, and you're thinking, why the hell can't I figure this out? What is going on? So we end up at another repeat section. And so we get into the paid programs. So me personally, after trying NoFap for 4 years, I was thinking, right, let's get some professional help. Let's see what paid programs can do for us. And I've been in 3 paid programs over my time, Beyond Compulsion Academy being, the last one, and 2 before that. And so the sort of stuff that I learned in those other 2 were aspects such as blockers. Now, we've used them in the previous section with the NoFap. Blockers in this sort of coaching environment were more sort of organized, and like you had accountability partners, your coach assigned to you, watching your devices. So you had that person as a direct accountability partner. Now, onto accountability partners. Going into this, you're thinking, yeah, accountability sounds like a good idea. It means I don't have to go through this alone. I can like talk about my urges with somebody, and it's going to buy me that extra time that I need to think about what I'm going to do. And this is how I used to think about it. And when it came to accountability partners in terms of practicality, it was great meeting people, don't get me wrong. The issue was that, one, again, you don't want to get into that mindset where you feel like you need somebody else to rely on in any sort of capacity for you to end your compulsive behavior, for you to reclaim control of that area of your life and actually live the permanent mental freedom and autonomy that we're looking for. And number 2, accountability partners can be sort of a hit and miss situation where, the schedules are different, urges are high at one point, low at one point, and you're missing each other, and there's all this logistical issues in place. And so generally, yes, although it seems great on the surface, it isn't quite the way of thinking to go, because again, you're conceding to the position that you need someone else to help you with your compulsive desire. Yes, seek help, but it's not this relationship where you're relying on somebody else to actually get through the discomfort and urges, processing and addiction. So extra reading, I had a lot of books being read. So several books sort of expanding on sort of the topic of trauma or shame or pornography addiction or compulsive sexual behavior in general. And you're given these books to read and you learn perhaps some interesting aspects, but it's not really covering the aspects of what do you do in the first person experience of handling an urge. Why is it happening? Where is it coming from? What's the nature of it, and why you have to nip it in the bud at this point and that point and this point. There's not much of that going on. It's with the books that I read, it goes into certain niche details of a certain case of a certain person, but there's never sort of this overlying guide of what to do in those moments when you're actually facing the heat of an urge head on. And it's all really fast and it's all really sort of overwhelming, and you're thinking, damn, I really, really want to engage in porn right now. And there wasn't too much of that sort of language being emphasized in these writings. Self-improvement. Now, in generally, yes, self-improvement is a great thing. However, using it as a means, using it as a vector in order to stop your compulsive behavior with anything, or porn for this case, it's because it's such an indirect way of doing it, it renders ineffective. And we see this, right? We see this when a guy is in great shape, he's got good finances, he's actually married, he's actually doing things, he's out there creating things and actually doing a lot of good stuff in their life, doing a lot of activities in their life which has a lot of meaning. So it's not exactly like a situation where someone has no meaning in their life, which is why they're engaging in their addiction. No, self-improvement is normally a thing that's used in order to say either self-improvement is going to take away time from engaging, or it's going to sort of fix something internal, which is going to have a switch and it's going to flicker an emotion that's going to make you realize, I don't need porn anymore. Unfortunately, that just isn't the case. You're not directly addressing the addiction when you're doing these indirect things, such as improving your dating life, improving your business, improving your health, all these other areas. So general weekly calls was another thing that I was involved in. And although, again, it's useful connecting with guys in a similar situation, when it came to these group calls in the other paid programs, these two other paid programs, they were more general conversations. They were general conversations about wins and losses in the week, and then touching on other areas of life. Perhaps one week it was how to navigate relationships. Another week was how do you sort of organize your biochemistry in a way which makes you sort of optimal during the day and subsequently has you in a position to avoid a relapse. It wasn't this one meeting or several meetings every week where you'll focus on one process, focus on connecting with a compulsive desire, focus on a specific tool, using every meeting every week to cover the same stuff, the same strategy, the same concepts, the same knowledge, to reinforce it over and over and over and over again every week. And so with these general calls, because they're sort of here and there, they're not focused on a single process, stopping porn addiction, staying stopped with it. Professional therapy is another one. And although in BCA, the coaches are very pro-therapy when it comes to the way that when one person goes to work with a therapist to overcome their behavior with porn, unfortunately, they're leading them down a lot of routes which sort of replicate what NoFap was offering and what general advice on the internet would sort of offer on this situation. And unfortunately, they pay all this money. They may learn a few things about themselves in a positive light, but they're still engaging in porn. They're still in a compulsive behavior. They're still having the same thoughts. And this is definitely not where you want to be in any addiction. And there's many more to add to this list, but essentially what happens also here, unfortunately, is we get back in the relapse repeat cycle, and this could go on for however long. And I think what's important to know here is that sometimes when a paid program fails for you, you get these thoughts like, what's wrong with me? Maybe I'm just too much of a lost cause. Why can't I stop this? There must be something wrong with my desires. All of these thoughts appear, and you actually go back into this sort of infinite loop shape here, right? So the thing ends up looking a bit like, infinitely looping through this strategy over and over and over again. You're sort of connecting this whole infinite thing, which we call circle people in BCA, where they're going on to the next method and the next method and the next method. And that's not exactly like them, the person in the addiction, being foolish or stupid. They just don't know any better. And this is sort of the unfortunate reality of the situation. There isn't this sequential system which they have found for themselves and thought, well, this strategy makes a lot of rational sense. Let's apply it. Let's ensure that it has tools that I can repeatedly apply moment by moment, every moment, when urges appear, when discomfort appears, and rewire the way that they think about porn, addictive neural pathways, rewiring the neural pathways that have developed over years and years of engaging, rewiring them. And so the behavior that comes with understanding this problem becomes a sort of temperament of being sturdy and being confident every time an urge comes, and being assured that you know what you're doing in every moment. You know what to do when this thought comes up. You know what to do when that sort of thought pattern comes up, and how to deal with that, and just stay on what we call in BCA the straight line. Just living moment by moment, every moment. When an urge comes up, we're processing it, we're onto the other side of it, we're racking that win up, and then we're building momentum after every single moment of getting onto the other side of an urge. So this part would be like the best place to come into when it comes to talk about BCA. You end up becoming that famous piece of artwork, that thinking man statue, when it looks like this. You just get into that state for years and years. You're wondering, what the hell is going on? Why am I still addicted? Why can't I break the cycle? I've not got past this chapter in my life yet, and I feel that, look, all this stuff that's good in my life, I feel that I don't deserve it. I feel that I'm not ready or deserving of the next chapter in my life because I've not been able to put a stop to this addiction, something that I would have thought all those years ago when I started NoFap that I would have had to still try and solve this. I wasn't expecting to still be stuck in a situation where I'm still suffering from the mental conflict of being in an addiction, from the loss of time that it takes away from the stuff that would have been a better decision to do in those times of engaging. the loss of self-trust, the loss of self-integrity, the list goes on. There's a lot of negative consequences which come from the behavior. But look, we're all familiar with that. We don't need to talk about it. But eventually, I came to meet Tom Molyneux. Was watching his YouTube. I'll link it to the top up there, and I'll link the video which you guys might find very useful regarding actually what is the thing keeping you into the addiction. So give that a watch and give all those videos on Tom's channel a watch. But yeah, I went through YouTube and I found Tom eventually, and I was onboarded onto Beyond Compulsion Academy. I got on a call with Tom. I discussed my situation, and really when I was talking to him, I was thinking, right, can he help me or not? Does he understand the problem or not? I know for sure that he's been through it. Like when you go on his channel, he talks about the stuff that he experienced, and you know, right? You know that he's gone through what we've all been through. So I was there thinking, right, does this person understand the problem? And does he have this level of understanding which is sort of different in a way that sort of sets off light bulbs in your head? And so that's what I was looking for. And Tom managed to deliver on that. And he was taught the Beyond Compulsion method by Mary Paulus. Mary Paulus has 35 plus years in the addiction recovery space. She learned it off her mentor. As time has gone on, people have learned this way of thinking, and Tom and Mary have turned it into this deliverable via Beyond Compulsion Academy at this point. Yes, specializing in stopping porn addiction, but however, this can be applied to any compulsive behavior. And in fact, when you're onboarded onto Beyond Compulsion Academy, recommendation is that you apply this to all compulsive behaviors of your life, and you reap the reward of it as well. So you can look to the previous videos as to sort of what the content is in BCA and how I wasn't onboarded. Had meetings with Tom, and we learned three main things, which is reinforcing the correct mental attitude towards addiction. So there's a period of rewiring, a period of rethinking about the situation of addiction when it comes to deprivation thinking, when it comes to hopelessness and helplessness, different thinking patterns such as unanswerable questions. And I was learning all this stuff pertaining to what is actually the components of addiction when you're in the first person experience, when you're in the experience of embracing those urges in the moment, when everything feels really fast, when you're thinking, damn, I want to do nothing right now apart from engage in porn, engage in my behavior. So a lot of that unwiring is a very important part. And number two, the more important part as you get into the method, the 5-fact scripts, you build your 5-fact script. It's a very personal piece of text which you use that you can bring out when you're feeling the urge, and it actively hits all the points where the addiction will want to take your thoughts. It stops them in their tracks and goes through the decision. It goes through the choice of should I engage or should I not engage, using the rational mind. So as you're feeling this urge, you're reading out your script, you're getting into this position of clarity, all the drawbacks, addressing all the excuses, as junkie thoughts are, all the excuses that can come up in those moments of urges and how to address them correctly and assertively, which then ties into the next point, using the 5-fact script to embrace and overcome junkie thinking and discomfort of withdrawal to stay on the straight line. So as we understand, all the list of long infinite lists of negative consequences come from engaging, as we listed a few earlier. The one thing it does do, the one thing that credit where it's due, of course, is when you engage in porn, it takes you out of the temporary discomfort of withdrawal. Apart from that, there really isn't any much other benefit from that. The consequences come straight after and you're back in the addiction. So you learn these core fundamental things in the program, and there'll be a time when you're in the program, and it could be different for anyone, but eventually you'll be in the program and you'll be instructed, listen, you're not ready to stop yet. You've got to learn all this stuff and you've got to build your script and understand and ascertain that you understand the method, and then you can move on to the next part, which is saying, like, I'm ready to stop right now. And you will know when you're ready to stop because you've had the education, you've had the training, you've got the tools, and you're able to actually move forward with confidence. There'll be a click within the learning process when you're in this education process, piloted by Tom and Mary, all faith in them. So you decide you're ready to stop, and then this sort of scenario where an urge comes up, and then you get the script out, you read through it, you got the right mental stance, you got the confidence, you got the clarity needed to know what to do in the situation of an urge, and you overcome it. You get that win, and that win is a win of self-integrity. And the thing is that when it comes to this whole sort of thing about days, counting days, when back in the NoFap stuff, it's sort of like, well, I don't deserve to feel good unless I reach 30 days. I don't deserve to feel good unless like I'm off porn for 90 days or even a year. With this method, it's just a very incrementally good experience. This actually brings the enjoyment into the stopping process where you actually overcome an urge in the moment and your trust just builds up and it compounds and compounds and compounds over time, straight line over time. You're staying on the straight line, you're present, you're living moment by moment, watching for when any urge comes up, and you go straight to the script, you apply it, and it comes from a place of confidence because you know exactly what to do. And these wins just keep on building up over and over and over. It's like a savings account. It compounds, the confidence compounds, the self-integrity compounds. And this is where the bigger wins get fueled. This is where like the next things you want to do, the person you always wanted to be with, the people that you've always wanted to hang around with, the hobbies and the projects and all that stuff becomes absolutely possible when you're in this mentality, because you're not having to deal with this parrot in your shoulder, which is constantly trying to get you engaged in your addiction, trying to get you to get into negative thoughts and spiral out of control. And this is where this is so effective, because you're just winning constantly over and over. And this is the thing, is like sometimes you won't feel an urge for ages, but when another urge comes up, you'll be ready, you'll be prepared, and you'll understand exactly what to do. And that is BCA, and this is what I learned in 2025 after a 17-year period of being in this situation at the top. And of course, I never looked back, and it's crazy to think actually looking back. But enough about this, because this is serious. And listen, if you've been watching this channel for a while now, you'll know about the 15-minute WhatsApp link in the description. You can get on a call with me. You can chat about your doubts and concerns, anything that you're unsure about. And what we can do is have a little conversation and see if BCA is the right fit for you.